So if you click the right mouse button alone, you bring object properties. So that is like you want to go into the component mode of vertices, edges, faces, UV, multi-components, or you want to go into the shading, the materials, the texturing, and you want to define out some other things about the object that is created. So RMB, we'll do that. Right mouse button, clicking while the object is on the scene. So basically, um, there's a cube on the scene. If I right click, I have properties, the edge, vertex, vertex face, face, multi, UV modes, or back to object mode, or I can do other things like make live, select similar, transversal, input, outputs, paint, um, all these other funny stuff. Then material, adding a new material, adding existing material and stuff. So everything that has to do with that object, right clicking on the object will give me that marking menu. The second marking menu that comes is when you add the shift key while right clicking. So I said typically by default, if nothing is selected in your scene and you shift and right click, it will give you creation methods to create new objects from your stuff, specifically polygons. It doesn't create NURBS surfaces. So basically polygons, polygon objects, so the orange tools. So shifting right click without anything selected will help me create a new object. Okay. Now, when an object is selected and I shift and right click, it brings out another set of menus that is dependent on the mode of the object. Right now, this object is in object mode. We check from our modeling toolkits. This is object mode, vertex mode, edge mode, face mode, and UV mode. These are the different component modes that the object has. So while I am in object mode, if I right click, shift and right click, it will give me a menu that can operate on this object, or I can use to manipulate or change this object in object mode, right? So these tools work in object mode, right, as the mesh is complete. If I switch to vertex mode, that's where I can access the vertices, and I shift and right click, it will give me a menu that will show me tools that work on vertex mode, not in object mode, but in vertex mode. If I go to edge mode, same thing. If I shift and right click, it will show me tools that work in edge mode. And if I go to face mode, same thing. It will give me tools that work in face mode. So the shift and right mouse button marking menu has different ways of working. Clicking outside of an object will help create another object. Clicking on the object will work whether it's on um, object mode, vertex mode, edge mode, face mode, right? So if I go into UV mode and I shift and right click, it will create a new object because that is not a typical creation mode, right? Control and right click will show me tools that for selection purposes. So preferably it will be best used on component mode or when I'm in one of those vertices or edges or stuff. It will show me those stuff. So for instance, if I'm in vertex mode, I select that vertex and I want the software to select all the edges connected to this vertex, I can control and right click and do to edges and to edges. And it will select all the edges that were connected to that vertex. So these three edges there. And I can now use them and do what I want to do there. Okay. So that's how these guys work, the marking menus. They're very key tools for us, because sometimes many of the tools you may not easily or readily capture which one works on which. But if you are paying attention to your menu here, you see things: mesh, edit mesh, mesh tools. Mesh are for things that work on the object in object mode. So then edit mesh are component mode, either vertex, edge, or faces. And then you have different tools for components. You have the ones that are specific for vertices, the ones that are specific for edges, the ones that are specific for faces, the ones that are specific for a curve. Then under mesh tools will actually handle tools that are used to subdivide a component. That is probably like an edge. You want to cut that edge again into multiple lines, or you want to split a face, or you want to double up on a vertex. Then these tools come into play, mesh tools. And that's what we have here in our modeling toolkit. The first set of tools here are mesh, things that work on the object as a mesh, as a whole. Components are things that work with the components, like vertices, edges, faces. Then tools here are the ones that, like what we call mesh tools, that are used to subdivide a mesh. I mean, a mesh component. You want to cut this line into two. You want to cut across these two lines. You want to split a vertex into two and stuff like that. So those tools, you find them there. So basically, this is how those guys work. And then we talked about movement, navigation, how to orbit your screen, pan. Yes, everything is about the Alt key. So Alt and right mouse button is to zoom in and out, or dolly in and out. Alt and left mouse button is to orbit the scene. Alt and middle mouse button is to pan the scene. Oh. Middle mouse plus Alt. Yep. So um okay, and then we talked about um what did we talk about again? Yeah, how to go into different viewports. Spacebar shifts you through different viewports. Just clicking on the spacebar. But hitting the spacebar and holding it for long will bring out a hotbox menu. The first two menus are the main menus here, up here, and down here that don't change, while the other five, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, form our menu sets that we have down here: modeling, rigging, animation, effects, and rendering. So we have modeling, rigging, animation, we have effects, we have rendering. So those are the marking menus. So you hold the space bar to access them. But if you just click fast on the space bar, it's going to go into your whatever viewports you were highlighted over, stuff like that. Okay, then yesterday I talked about what this pivots, changing of the pivot area, and emphasizing that the pivot or the pivot point, it works specifically for two purposes: for rotation and for scale, not movement. So changing the pivot does not affect movement, it affects scale. Right now, this pivot is in the center of this cube. So if I scale down, it will scale into that center and out of that center. If I rotate, it will rotate around that center. But if I shift the pivot somewhere else, like to shift the pivot key, I said is D on your keyboard, and then you can shift the pivot somewhere. Let me put it here and press D again. Now, if I scale, it is going to scale into that point. If I'm going to rotate, it's going to rotate around that point. Movement will still move the object the way it's supposed to move. It will not change anything. So, for some pocket design, there's a analysis or analogy where it says that you can actually create multiple shapes, but by changing the direction of the pivots. So like now, this cube here, I can put this pivot of this cube over this circle. Let me do it on the top view. Press D and I shift it to this point here to be over the circle, and D, so that if I try to rotate the cube, it goes around that point rather than around itself. So like a solar system kind of. So, and that's the essence of rotation and orbiting. Rotation is an object revolving around its own axis. A revolution or an orbit is an object revolving around another axis, someone else's axis. Yes, by using orbit, because we're not revoluting the camera. So, creating an arbitrary movement, not arbitrary, but arbitrary. An arbitrary movement is using the concept of revolution. So, revolution has to be this object, instead of rotating around its axis, it's rotating around the axis of something else. So the axis, or let's say its own center now becomes the center of somewhere else. So once you are doing that rotation, it's no longer rotation. So that's why they say the Earth rotates around its own axis 24 hours a day. But it revolves around the sun's axis 365 days a year. So while it's going around the sun, it's still rotating, right? Yeah. So it's still rotating, but then it's going around the sun. So the sun is just staying put. Just a guy sitting on a visible chair and emitting heat around. Okay, I'm not doing solar system, but that's the concept. All right. Because of those certain things, we can do some cool stuff in Maya. Now, I want to keep this guy, so I'll show you something. Let me go to my attribute editor. Now, yesterday I was talking about this stuff. I said, observe this cylinder. Let me come here. Observe that this cylinder has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, 5 tabs, right? So the first tab is positional, relating to the object's position in the scene. So when I lift it up, you can see what is moving, translates when Y is moving. If I move it on this, translate on Z is moving. All right. So, and if I rotate it, same thing. And then the second one has to do with tessellation per attributes of this guy. The third one has to do with the construct. Okay. Has to do with construct around him. Like after I create the cylinder, I want to create subdivisions and stuff like that. So I can now use this one to create all that fun on subdivisions and make a round cap and subdivide the caps and stuff like that. So basically that. These three parameters are important. Then I said you can copy or duplicate an object the same way we did in 3ds Max, holding shift and drag. But Maya has different ways of exhibiting whatever you are doing with your shift and drag. In 3ds Max, when you shift and drag, you can create either a copy, a reference, or an instance. The copy and the reference, no, the copy is detached from the original, but the instance and the reference is still attached to the original file, original object. So if you make changes on the original object, you see it on the instance and stuff like that. Okay. Uh, Maya is sort of different with its own. If you look at the, let me go on to edit, and you will see the duplicate kind of options we have. We have the duplicate, the normal control D that will just make a duplicate of what the object is. We have what we call a duplicate special. Then we have what we call duplicate with transform. This duplicate with transform is what we've been doing in Illustrator and the rest. When you do uh, you hold Alt and drag an object and drop it somewhere, and then you press Control D, and it keeps repeating that stuff, or you rotate and so on. So duplicate with transform. Remember, these are the transform attributes. Translate, rotate, scale, share. So duplicate with transform is if I rotated and I'm copying the duplicates now, it's to keep duplicating, making duplicates, maintaining the rotations that is going on. If I did a scale, to do the same thing. If I did translate, do the same thing. So if I first, let me hold shift. When you hold shift and drag, you'll see that the word clone appears. If I hold shift and drag this guy now, okay, I want you to notice this tab. Something happened on this tab. So how many do we have here? 4. How many do we have here? 5. Good. So one is missing. We have three-cylinder shape. We have the same here. Huh? Okay, okay. Yeah, all right. So when you duplicate primarily at the basic level in Maya, it will carry the transformational properties and the shape properties, right? But the ability to make changes to the shapes, like I want to add more lines, and this is lost. It's only in the original that we will have that. Okay, so let me do another one again. So I'm leaving this place on. If I hold shift and drag, it has disappeared again because it doesn't duplicate with the input graph. The input graph are those things that I can use to, those parameters I can use to change this guy. But I need those things so that I can do some things here, some separate things here. So how do I get them? That's where we have the duplicate special, the second duplicate. So you don't be quick to click troubleshoot D first. Let's check the settings. In the settings, there's this box here. You need to find out what it's doing. So here, it will do something like 3ds max, tell you how many copies stuff. But we have, by default, we have copy, we have instance, similar to what we had in 3ds max. Then are we grouping it under the parent or under the world, or create a new group? How much of movement will it make? Should I translate when I'm making a duplicate? Should it translate on the X, Y, or Z? Should it rotate? As in all those functionalities. How many copies am I making? So if I just make these duplicates now, it will not be any more different than this until I click on duplicate input graph. Now, immediately I click duplicate input graph, every other information here will gray out because now it's making a duplicate that will look like the original. So once I apply, because I didn't create a transform movement, let me close this. So see all my duplicates here. So now, if we look at all of them, they all still have their input channels intact. The only thing the software did is it gave it names. So polycylinder 1, polycylinder 5, polycylinder 4, polycylinder 3. But I still have the input graph. So this is what I want to actually be duplicating with most of the time. Not every time, but most of the time. And by default, it was on 4. So if you don't want it to be on 4, you can leave it on 1. Or you can put as many options you like. You can as well drag out a specific number here, like, okay, let's do like this. Let's say I want to make duplicate of 4, but I remove duplicate input graph. I can say translate it along the X, no. Okay, let me go along the X axis. Let me do 20 movements along the X axis and rotate along the Z axis 25 degrees and make 4 copies, and I click apply. So see, it makes duplicates along that axis, counting 20 translation, but also rotating. So why it's rotating like this is because as far as it's using this duplicate special, it's rotating around the axis of something else. So difference between here and here was 25 degrees. So the difference between this one and this one also will be 25 degrees. The difference between this one and this one will be 25 degrees. So it's no longer reading from one, but it's reading from what was the previous axis point, and it keeps reading from there and on like that. Okay. The only difference is that this guy won't have that input graph. But like I said, what if I want those input graphs, but I still want to make that arrangement? So very simple. Let me just leave these guys back at 0. We will do that thing we did in Illustrator. And turn this guy to 1, duplicate input graph, and close it. I'll just apply and close. So I can select this guy now, or let me use this guy. So I can hold shift and drag and drop, and then shift D, shift D, shift D, shift D, shift D to duplicate, to make those duplicates, right? Okay, so I can do that. So let me do duplicate special. I want to make sure duplicate input graph is selected. Good. Yes. Yes. All right. So, all right. So for this guy now, this cube, the axis is right here, right? The axis of this cube is right here. So if I'm rotating it, it should be going around like this. Maybe that's the concept. Good. So I can hold down my shift and make that rotation. Working correctly. Okay, and I go that. So I can now do shift D and make multiple arrangements that way. In Maya, if you want to make an object move according to degrees of 15, you hold down the J key first before you do it. So let me hold down the J key before I hold down my shift and right and hold on. So shift J. So it's going in 15 degrees. I let go. So if I shift D, it should give me its accurate spacings. So I can make this kind of creations here with my objects and have these shapes. And the beautiful thing is there are other ways I can do this without being manual. I can just create one box and then use a mesh and create a range of objects. So when we come into dynamics and effects, motion graphics, we will see how to use the mesh tool. That tool I was telling you that it's like Cinema 4D Blender and Maya had an affair and gave birth to a mutant baby. So, and that baby now became the mesh tool. It's a very powerful tool. That tool is very powerful for creating kinds of effects. Okay, so that's so you understand it definitely. Is it? Okay. All right. So moving the pivot affected the way these guys operate, right? Good. All right. Then we now went to our assignments, and our assignments were simple. I created a car from a different file and a different building. So you have to bring in that car here. Because the car was created from a different file, it exists in the location where it was created in. So I have not corrected it because I want you, like I said, to do it by yourself. Yeah, it's yes, it's good. It's a good stress, by the way. Non-Sahara products, but yeah, no excuse, but go. Bye bye. Enjoy. Go. Amen. So now my car is in my scene, but I can't see it, obviously, because it's somewhere else. It's not in my point of origin. So it's far off because I brought it in without with reference to where it was created, the file I created. So it was created on this section of the file. So I'm going to bring it back here now. And I said we want to move this pivot point back here because the software Maya brought it in but initiated its pivot point here because in Maya anything you're bringing in has to appear in the point of origin. So the fact that this OBJ file has the data of that distance it's far away from its pivot point in Maya. So the first thing we did in Maya was yesterday was to set up our center pivot, how to make your pivot appear in the center of the object or wherever it should be. And we set up a key 9 for that. And just in case you forget, if you come to modify here, center pivot, it will get you that stuff. Points to note, the way Maya menu works is very specific tools. So we have edit for editing, create for creation, select for selections. There's all kinds of select options or modes. Modify to modify whatever you are doing, like adding attributes, pivots, transformations, and all those stuff. You find them under modify, or you want to convert your object to something like a NURBS to a polygon or a paint effect to a polygon and stuff. You find it under modify. Display is I want while I'm designing, I want to be seeing certain things on my viewport. You find them under display. Then Windows is anything that has to do with UI, like your editors, your UI generally, or things you also want to work on, your UI. So then mesh has to do with objects, mesh objects, complete whole in object mode. Edit mesh in component mode, either vertex, edge, or face mode. You want to edit the object. Mesh tools, things that subdivide components, like you want to split a vertex in two, or divide a line or an edge into two or four, or split a face into three. If those tools are found under mesh tools. And mesh display is for displaying of the mesh, how the mesh is displayed. Then curves are for your curves. You want to work on your curves. So that's your splines and the rest. Surfaces are for your NURBS objects, the blue objects, surfaces. So then deform is to deform, or yes, deformers that change behaviors around your object, like bending them or twisting them or stuff like that. And on and on. So Maya menus are very specific, just for that. Okay, so the first thing I did here, yes, after we selected this guy, I brought it in here to the center of the thing. These triangles, these are the tessellation methods that I talked about in the making here. It tells you how the tessellation will how many when you have a mesh, all those triangles now inside tessellations. Okay, so now this guy is here. Um, it's not facing correctly. I want it to face straight. So little key things I talked about when modeling. Let me hide my time slider, range slider. I don't really need that now. I have space. So when it comes to modeling, some little tricks I talked about is allowing your objects have a specific form so that you can control it easily or easier. This object is a combination of multiple objects, multiple faces. So when you are designing a car, something like this, that everything is going to be talking to itself, everything will be unique, then you want to create multiple parts. But if it's just a car that will just move, that you're not going to open the doors or anything, yeah, you can create a singular object. Okay. So we need all these guys to behave naturally. So I want to first of all place this car correctly, put it on the ground, make sure it's on the ground level. The ground level will be that thick black line or brown line or whatever color that line. gray line. Okay, and then I want to um, rotate. Yep. I've not changed to wireframe, but you want to change to wireframe, just press. No, I've not changed to wireframe. But if you want to see in wireframe, just press 4 on your keyboard. Mm. Then you want to go back 5. Mm. This one is just because it's selected, so it's and because it's selected, sorry, and it was an OBJ, so it's trying to show the conversion when it was being exported, how the software read it. All right. So now I want to rotate this guy correctly because they are individual objects. Each of them has their own pivot center. So rotating it like this will not work. All of them will be rotating around their own pivot center. So that's why the first thing we did when we brought it in was to put them in a group. So Control G while they were all selected, then make the group. So we now rotate the group. So I do Control G now. It now groups them, makes them a group. So don't deselect and select because if it's deselect and select something, it will select something. Textures. Your mind I didn't do my own texture. Yeah, importing the ones I gave you guys are already compacted textures. Hmm. So now to rotate it, I can it's easy for me. Make sure I select the group in the outliner and I can rotate this and keep it straight. Then position it accordingly. Make sure everything is centralized kind of. Okay. Yep. Don't know where you saved it. For the camera. I know. Where it saved that folder you created. Yes, inside of folder, it you will see when you check your folder. So the Maya creates this thing you just created now is a what is a scene. So let me show you an example. If I come into my Maya files folder, for instance, I'll show you where you can find it. But I'll tell you where you can find it. So let's say, so see, I have this folder Maya class, right? Um, the one I created for us was what? Uh, I think Aptech something like that. Maya Aptech or something. Yeah. Let me see. I think it should be under Maya Works. No, Maya class. No, Maya class. Yeah, whatever. I'll find it. So now I'm here. I see folders. Oh, okay. Let me open Maya training or modeling. I'll open modeling. This is what I'm seeing. So what I created when I was doing Control S, Maya saved it as a scene inside a scenes folder. It's inside that scenes folder I will find all the scenes. Now, in case you don't want to go through that route, if it's something you just did, just file, recent files, recent projects, any of them. The project is the place where it's saved. Files is the file itself. But oh well. Okay. Right. So okay. When you is there any software you have tried opening that you didn't know that you have to check for recent files? Anyway, okay. So now when you correct the positioning, the gizmo will look weird. It is expedient that you freeze that connection there. So like here you can see that they have been movements translates this and this. So to avoid stories and errors, we want to make sure everything will be accurate. So you need to freeze transform. Freeze transformations, what Maya does is it forces the software to imagine that this is how this object was created initially. So if I come to modify, I can now click freeze transformations. It's going to turn every of these movements, all these guys here, back to zero, but leave the car the way it is. So it's going to freeze that. So now it's on zero, but the car is still the way it is. So it's like telling the software, this is how this car should be. If I now want to create things like simulations or animations, I won't have too much problems coding what I'm not supposed to, because the software now knows that wherever it is starting from that point of origin, that point of zero. So that's why we freeze our object many of the times. Otherwise, they will start acting on their own. Okay, so now that that is done, I can now remove them from their group. Like I said, there's for this version of the software, there's no shortcut for ungroup. So you just go and ungroup. Otherwise, if you want to ungroup like parenting, that's on parent, you need to select the children, then do Shift P. So that can be stressful with these guys. That can be stressful with these guys because if you just do like this, you can do like this and select all the children. You can see it's white now, right? So when it's in a group, it's just green. But if I do this, they are all white, meaning that one of them will be green, meaning I've selected all the children. So I can do Shift P and it will ungroup itself. They now become singular objects. Again, the group is now there, but it's an empty vessel. There's no content inside of it. So let me undo that. Otherwise, just select the group, come to edit and do ungroup and take it back to 0 point. Okay, so now this is what we're doing yesterday. Let's have fun doing it. We want to, I started it, I saved that file. So this is now a new file. So I'm going to do it freely with you guys. Let me switch to modeling expert so that I'll have a lot more space. Right. So Jason, this is where you were talking about, right? Place of the banda. Okay. So I need to open this door, but the windscreen or the door's window and this screen does not go with the door. So I have to parent them to the door. Yeah, the mirror and this screen here, the winder. What is the actual name for this thing, sir? Window and the mirror. So this is called a window. Hmm. I used to think that's a wrong name. Window is glass. Yeah, but the one in front is not called a window. the back one either. So I just think there's a name for it. Anyway, I'll find out from my car dealers. Anyway, so we need to select to make a parent of our children of a parent. You need to select the children first and then select the parent last. So the children will be this glass and this glass, right? We are holding shift to do that. Is in previous ones I use control. They hold shifts and then we select the parent last. The parent is the door itself. So parent last. That means the parent has to be green. The children should be white. Then you parent them simply by pressing P on the keyboard, P for parent. Once you do that, the parent disappears. That's in the highlight on the parent disappears. It's not an error. It's just telling you, yes, these guys are now inside something. If the parent is still on, it means it didn't connect. So I'm going to select the parent now, and I want to change the pivot point. So I press D on the keyboard to change the pivot point. Because the door has to open from this corner here, I need to shift this yellow dot, that yellow dot there, to that corner there. Then the red line, this red line has to align with the body of the car so that when the door is opening, it's not opening outside of the car. Okay. So once that is done, here on this view, I'm using my top view to do that. Then in my front view or side view, I position this guy to make sure it is on the highest bend or curve of the door, this point here. Once I have those two in place, I know that the door will open well. I can now press D again. So if I rotate this now, it will open correctly with the glass and everything. It will open well. But now I can open and push the door inside, which is a problem. I don't want that. Which led to the second thing you do when you are making this kind of animation. You have to limit the movement. So limiting the movement, that you go to that point, that first tab where we have the transform attributes, we have something called limit information there. So right now, this door can rotate on the x-axis, can rotate on the z-axis, can rotate on the y-axis. So doors don't work like that. Doors rotate only one axis per time. It's either opening on the y or it's doing like this Ferraris that or Lamborghini that goes up, that opens vertically. But they don't do the two. So you choose for this car, obviously it has to open normally. So I want to make sure it never opens on the X or on the Z. So in the limit information under rotate, rotate limit X, I will make it minimum 0 and maximum 0. So that means do not rotate at all. I'll do the same thing on limit Z, 0 and 0. Meaning now if I try to rotate it along the x-axis or the z-axis, it's not going to rotate. It's just going to be the way it is. Now for the y-axis, if I open the door, let me see, I have to be sure whether it's minimum or maximum. So if I click this and move, I can read from here that it's on the mark, that it is on the positive. So that means what I'm cutting off is the negative. So negative should be 0. Then positive, I'll take something like 80 degrees. Let's say 80 degrees. So that the door opens and stops after 80 degrees. So now the door can open up to here, but it can't go more than this. And it closes and it can't go inside anymore. So that's what this limit information does. It helps us lock that. So, like I tried explaining yesterday, don't be caught off the fact that because we gave it a max on 80 rotation limits for the Y on positive 80 means that is going to happen everywhere else. It's going to be different on this side of the car. The rotation limit here will not be positive. Rather, the positive will be the one that should not rotate because now rotating on the positive is going inside the car based on how the car is facing. So it's the negative direction that matters. So first of all, I will target these guys, shift, 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 parents, and then adjust the pivot point or pivot point. Right. So I'm going to do the pivot point. But now there's a trick here. Right now, I can't see on my side view. I can't see that door, yeah. So I have to figure out what direction am I facing. So remember when I'm talking about what when we're talking about side view, where is it that you are standing on the object? Okay. So let me do like this. If I hold shift and right click, let me create a cube here and put one cube here. So I have the cube here. D. And then I will create a cylinder. Put it on this other side. I want to show something. Okay. Okay. So I'm trying to do this door. This door is in the angle facing the cylinders. I want to check, I want us to see something. How you know which side view you are on. Although I've talked about it a lot of times, but I want us to see it again. Yellow. Let's see. Okay. So, like I was saying, I want to get to the point where I can see this door. I want to know which view I'm on that will enable me see this door. Okay, right now, in my side view here, I'm not seeing that door. So I have to change my side view to either left or right. So based on the concept of the design, which one will be the correct view for me to see that door down here? Is it left or right? This is front view, right? This is front view. So, but I'm backing the car. So that means this is my car's left, this is my car's right. That means on the right of my car is a cube, on the left is a cylinder. That's what I'm looking at. So from here, I'm on the side that is showing the cube. That's this side. What I want to see is this side showing the cylinder. So which view am I going to be changing this guy to? Like now, okay, let me show. If I come to panels, right, orthographic, I have under new, I have front, back, right, left, top, bottom. So between right and left, which view is the one that has the cylinder? Is it right or left? Yeah, you vote for right. Who else is voting? Voting for right. Okay, so we have two rights. Who who is lefting? Is there anybody lefting? Is it? Don't spoil them finally. Alright, there's Control Z. Those that said right, why did you say right? That's your favorite. It feels right to choose right. The reason why I'm asking this, remember when we before we started, I showed that multi-view image, and one person was facing like this, and one was facing like this, and I asked you, how do you know which it is right view or left view? And I now used an example like when you put two objects, that's why I put them two objects beside the car now. There's a cube on one side, a cylinder on one side. So the car is backing us. So this is the front view. That means as the car is backing me, his right view is my right, his left is my left, right? But normally in 3D, the object is facing you. So my right view is his left view is my right, and on like that. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if I'm saying positive X means me standing on my own right side looking towards the object, or on the object's left side looking towards the object. Then negative is me standing on this side looking towards the object. So now this guy is backing me, meaning my right is also his right. But it doesn't change where I'm standing. Positive means I'm still standing here, looking this way. So what I'm asking is this looking this way, is it right view or left view? You've changed from right to left. Okay, let's do it like this. Let me show you that. I will explain it more. This is right view, the same view you have, because I'm on the right side. I'm looking at the object. Right now, this object is facing me. Remember, If it wasn't facing me, I'll say I'm looking towards the right side of the object. Right, the right object is actually facing. So I am now actually facing this right. So left view, this is left. I'm on the left, looking here. So if I change it to my left view now, that's when you will now see the other view of the car. So when you select this, you now see that. That's how it is on every 3D software. That's why I explained it in 3ds Max first, and now came in here. So, so don't forget, left view means I am standing on the left and looking at this, and that is how I look at the idea. Left view, I'm on the left viewing the thing. Right view, I'm on the right viewing the stuff. Front view, I'm in front viewing it. Top view, I'm on top viewing it. Okay? It's easy to remember that way, right? It's hard to process. Okay. All right. See, front view means what? I'm in front, facing it. So, front view, front or front seeing. Top view is what? I'm on top, seeing them. Yeah. So, right view mean what? I'm on the right, viewing. Left view, I'm on the left, viewing. So right now, this car is backing me. So his right is my right as well. So I'm on the right, his real right, viewing. If the car was the other way around, facing me instead on the front view, then I will be on the car's left because, but it's still my right. My right. No, if the car was facing me now, this will still be my right. It's like me and you looking now. Your right hand is not here. This is your right hand. Good. So if I'm saying I'm on your right view, I'm still going to be on my right side, viewing you, but it will be viewing you through your left. So my left view is my left side, then I'm viewing you from there. Okay. So regardless of how you are facing, the view is based on how I am looking at you because the views are camera views. All these are camera views. That's why if you check your outliner, you see that these are camera views. They are like cameras. So let me show you. If I come to my outliner, you see all the views, perspective, top, front, side. They are cameras. They are views. So when you create a new camera, it just adds a new camera from a different angle. So, but perspective is camera at perspective angle that is moved and turned everywhere. Top view is the camera that is placed in the top view that is just hanging up there. Side view is a camera that is hanging on the right side, I mean on the left side, and then we have the what's it called, front view camera that is facing. So they are just camera views. So that means the view is determined by my camera, not by the object itself. So that's clear, Abby? Yeah. I hope it's clear to everyone. Okay. It should be because we'll find out shortly when we start modeling whether we can understand it or not. All right, so let me get this guy go. So remember, your views are just how the camera is seeing these guys. So I want to change this point to D. I'm going to move this guy here. Tap it with the car body. Then bring this one to the highest curve, car there, and press D again. Now, in my rotational value for this guy, my limit, I still don't want it to go on the X axis. I still don't want it to go on the Z axis. But now for the Y axis, limit Y, If I open this door, where is it going? Check the center here. This current. Where is it? Is that 34 or minus 34? This here is minus. Meaning I'm going in the negative value. So that means I'm going in the minimum section. So if I'm setting my limits, if I put 0, just like I did with the first door on the minimum, the door will not open. I have to put the 0 here so that it doesn't rotate to the positive, that it doesn't rotate to this side, rotates to this side. Your door rotated to this side. So my positive here is the one that will be 0, while this one will be the 80, minus 80, sorry, minus 80. So now I can open this door up to minus 80, close it. So I have minus 80 door, I have plus 80 door. So I want you to do it for all the doors now. We have 3 minutes to do it. Same process. Right. Good. That. Hmm. You need her or you need mine. Okay. So what's the problem? Undisclosed. I should come out quietly. Okay. It's based on I need to know basis. All right. So do. Come on, let me pause. So that what I want to say will not enter, man.